Alright, for the Lost Ark Community, it's been a pretty rough weekend, a pretty rough couple days. Because first there was Low On, which was big doomer, but we were surprised with an update or at least an announcement for NA. And I want to say that between those two, there are some W's to take. A couple examples are going to be not having to use fiance to transfer things within your roster. They're going to increase the rate of class accessory drops, tripod amulets from Legion raids, and then battle items are going to be roster bound, along with modifying or consolidating tier 1, tier 2, and early tier 3 and honing and that kind of stuff. On paper and everything, it sounds like it's going to be a good thing for the new player experience, which is what I consider to be one of the biggest problems with the game. But that's not this video's topic. You know, looking at the title, look at the thumbnail, you know the topic. You know what everybody's been talking about. It's homework. They pulled the same thing in Low On Winter, where they're like, yeah, we hear you guys talking about homework and we're looking into it. If we look at the transcript, they say that they don't want to just outright lower it, they want to make it more fun. They acknowledge alts, and I myself, I'm a fan of the idea of a 1x. I don't want to fight this damn monkey 2 times. I don't want to fight any Guardian Raid twice. So I want to talk about the problem and really why this is a bad response and why it doesn't make sense. So first off, let's talk about design. This game is designed for you to play 6 characters minimum. This game is designed around the raid bosses. This is about the combat experience, and everybody who's going to play these games, this type of game, is really going to want to min-max. Even the people who only want to like focus one character, have one main, they still play other characters during gold. To solo self-fund one character, playing one character, that's pretty much not a thing if you want to ever keep up. You either have to play other characters or you have to swipe, unless you're just extremely lucky and you get like 5 million gold drops. I think it was in Low On Winter where they said that this problem with homework was a thing for the veteran players and something that the new players need because they won't have much to do. That in itself always bothered me, and I want to explain why. Because ideally, you know, these new players, these tourists that are coming in with one character trying out the game, the goal is to transition these players into the long-term players with 6 character rosters, which means those players who were once all right with it are going to eventually become pissed off because they're going to become the veteran player. So that kind of response is only helping one side of the community. And I know a counter argument is that this is designed to entice play to win. And if I'm being honest, you know, a new player shouldn't be focused on doing 2 chaos, 2 guardian raids every day. Having them do 1x would actually be more beneficial for them, because if they're a new player, that means they have a lot of horizontal content to do and catch up on. You know, they need to get their Ignia tickets, they need to get all their runes, they got to do all this kind of stuff, all this other stuff that's going to take a lot of time. And saving that bit of a time just doing 1x would help them. Which is why, from a pure design standpoint, their responses and their line of thinking doesn't make sense. Because when you look at their response and when they say that they just want to make it more fun, and make it more fun means people won't have a problem with it, they're not looking at the entire problem. They're trying to build a solution for the problem that isn't exactly there. The major talking point isn't that, oh, these things are boring, I don't want to do them. The problem is that this is too much, which leads us to the next topic. Time is the main reason why people are against homework. So let's say you clear chaos in 3 minutes and monkeys in 5 minutes. Right there is 16 minutes. Then you say 3 unas, you got to do the teleporting around, talking to people and stuff like that, plus whatever kind of puttering around you want to do, because let's be honest, you've been doing this for like a year, you're not going as optimal as fast as you want to, because you just don't care. You're probably watching YouTube like I do. So let's just round up. Let's just say 20 minutes to do 1 character's worth of dailies. Well, again, this game is designed around you having 6 characters. So that means that's going to take you 2 hours a day to do this. 2 hours a day, every day. So that's 14 hours a week just spent on daily tasks. Of course, every day, then also you're going to have things like Adventure Islands, Legion portals, field bosses. Also, you should be burning that life energy. You know, don't waste that gold. And when it comes to weekly, you know, it's going to be guild tasks, it's going to be weekly tasks, it's going to be things like queue. And then finally, it's going to be the thing we're all playing the game for. It's the rating. That I can't give you a time frame on because it's just going to be variable on groups, eye level and stuff like that. But this is your gigantic checklist of things you got to do every day, every week. And that's why the community is so set on 1x. That's why we want 1x. That's why we talk about it, is because even just 1x will make a pretty big difference in your week, because that's talking about taking off half the time, which in this scenario, we're talking about 7 hours of your entire week saved. Now, if we're talking about that one character player, the new player that they keep on worrying about, the one they're talking about, that's still 70 minutes. 70 minutes that they could be doing horizontal content with, or even just trying out different alts and different characters. Because now with the change progression, it might not be that awful to natural level 1. Then when we talk about veteran players, well, I'm going to use myself for example. I could be using that time that I'm saving to play other alts, or even just do the like 30-40 cubes I probably have saved on my alts that I just don't have time for every week. And of course, the final thing is that maybe people can just have things done and take a little bit of time away from the game to avoid fatigue. Yes, as humans, we do love repetition, but there is a limit. Like the two major things I think people quit the game for is going to be burnout and just feeling like this is a job versus just people who get gatecapped and quit because they can't experience the game for what it is. But also I think this view on time is the reason why we have gatekeeping. I think this is part of the reason why we have gatekeeping, is because you have this giant list of things you have to do every week, things to do every day. With all these different things that you have to do, people don't want to take the risk on newer players learning parties and all that kind of stuff when they have a schedule to keep. They have all these other chores and tasks and homework things that they have to do, which leads to these drastic over-geared gatekeeping. Now, obviously this wouldn't solve gatekeeping. Like just because everybody had less to do in the week and they had more leisure time doesn't mean that everybody's just going to go out helping people, but I do think it is a large factor because they just want to be efficient, which is, well, our next subject. Now, I know there's going to be those people who are out there going to say, well, if it's too much for you, just do rested. But if we do rested, that means we're losing about 33% efficiency. That's really a lot in a game that requires a lot of resources to really hone and push. And that's the thing, you're always playing catch up in this game, or at least just trying to stay up at the current content for most players. So losing that 33% is really huge, especially when your daily content, that is the stuff that really reaps you the most benefits for the amount of time you put in. That's where you're getting your blue and red crystals, that's where you're getting the majority of your shards, you're getting good silver out of it, you have a lot of chances to get a decent drop out of it. When you're doing guardian raids, you're getting tradable leaps that can translate to a lot of gold or extra hones, so it's really hard to turn it down for the sake of efficiency. Like I made my scouter day one when I made it, and I've been pushing ever since. This character's still not 1580. Pretty much every single hone post 1516, he's pitied. He's pitied both as weapons, the 2 tabs add to that. So he went from like almost 3k Marvelous Leap Stones to 0. He's gatekept by that. All my Unbound Leaps, they went to my Slayer, and then, you know, after this, I gotta start saving up for Baromancer, then I gotta start saving up for Soul Eater. There's just so materials you need that it's really hard to just stop doing it. Because I'm a person who doesn't swipe for power, I swipe for cosmetics and stuff like that. I like stuff that I can keep, and then I just try to farm things out, but it's really hard. And it's just really time consuming, and it's inefficient to hold on to these things, hold on to your rested. Which, yeah, talking about honing, pushing, and how rough it is for playing a new class, that could be a video of its own. Now, I want to go a little bit off. I want to talk about two different situations, two very different situations of developers doing or reacting to how player feedback goes. I could have picked two better situations that probably better represent the current situation with Lost Ark. However, these are two things that have really stuck with me ever since they've happened. And I think regardless of the demographic, the genre, or anything like that, I think how a developer thinks and addresses things is very important no matter what. So the first situation is a pretty classic one, a pretty famous one. Anybody who follows World of Warcraft, Blizzard, they're gonna know this one. So to set up the situation, post Wrath of the Lich King, the game wasn't really doing too well, the population was kind of dwindling down, and the player base was not too happy with the current state of the game. This is when private servers were kicking off, and at BlizzCon, somebody asked about it, and this is what happened.
Have you ever thought about adding servers for previous expansions as they were then?
No. And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't. Remember when you had to like spam cities and say, need a tank, need a tank, need a tank during the Burning Crusade days? You don't remember that because now you just push a button that says go to the dungeon. You don't want to do that. Remember that one bug that really pissed you off that we fixed like 2 years ago? Still there in the past.
Now, that was a pretty horrible way to say it. Like, you think you do, but you don't. Like, they're just outright telling you that what you do or do not want. And now here we are in the year 2023, and people love classic servers. They love old-time servers. Like, they completely disregarded player feedback and what people thought and what people wanted, and just said, no, this is what you want, when it clearly wasn't. And then on the other hand of the spectrum, we have a completely different game and a completely different genre. So I'm going to talk about Killer Instinct. So if you don't know, KI is a fighting. Now there's a meter in the game called Instinct. Once it fills up, you pop it, you activate Instinct mode, and for every character, what it does changes. For the character we're going to talk about is Jago, and his Instinct mode lets him heal off his fireballs. Now the thing the community was talking about, the problem was that the character heals too much. So the solution that the player base came up with, the one that they kept on petitioning for, was just to make him heal less. Turn down the healing because he's healing too much, and it's not fair. Now in this Fight On, the Killer Instinct story documentary by Hold Back to Block, they actually have a lot of the developers talk about it, and they talk about this situation. So instead of just giving into the pressure of reducing the healing, they took 4 months to really look deep into the character. In the balance patch to follow, they reduced the frame advantage on wind kick instead of nerfing the healing. Their logic was that this character had too many good matchups. It didn't have any bad matchups, and it just got to use that move to close space, skip neutral, and take their turn. So the people who thought that healing was too powerful, they still thought he was getting away with murder, and this wasn't the changes they wanted. They just said, hey, still just nerf the healing. That's all we want. That's all you need. While the Jago community himself says he's dead, he's done, the character's just over. So the player base was initially upset, but over time, people stopped talking about Jago healing too much, and tier lists came out where the character started to have bad matchups. Because now that Jago wasn't skipping neutral, getting it in for free, and getting free fireball damage out of it, he wasn't healing as much. And as Adam Hart says, they were trying to find the disease. They felt the healing was a symptom to it, not the real problem. I love that way of thinking, and it's something that's become part of how I think about games ever since I've seen this documentary. And I really suggest for anybody to watch this whole thing. Even if you're really not too into fighting games, it's good to kind of see just the history, development, and just how people are tackling things. So why am I talking about WoW and KI in a Lost Ark video? Now, I don't think the Lost Ark devs Smilegate, they're off the deep end like Blizzard. They're not that bad, but they're nowhere near as into their own product, caring about their own product, and really staying in touch with the community. Because again, they're worried about how fun Chaos Dungeon and stuff is when we're mostly thinking about time. We're thinking that it takes too long to do it because we're required to do it because the efficiency of it and just how hard it is to push. And many other people, everybody still thinks that, the developers, they're just out of touch. They don't understand the problem. And I agree, they're not addressing it properly and they're not addressing it more seriously. So with all those being said, given the design of the game and just how much time it takes to do all these things, taking 2 hours of every day to run your 6-man roster through all your content as a minimum of the game is rough. The developers are out of touch. They don't see the big picture yet. Overall, they're focused on having people play more as opposed to having more people play. We see this with a lot of these types of games. So we see it with Phantasy Star New Genesis. We see it with Vindictus. We see it with Tree of Savior, where the game has a very low player count, but because there's so many people that are there that are swiping, it just feels like they don't care about the average player because they already caught all the big whales of sunken cost fallacy who just keep on swiping. And it is when I think back to KI and I think about that situation with Jago where developers actually looked into it and they came up with a different solution, and over time it actually was the right choice. And as much as I want to hope that Lost Ark is going to do the same, I'm still worried because of how they worded it as they want to make Chaos Dungeon more fun. Because again, we're not looking out for fun, we're looking out for time. And I wanted to talk about this just because everybody else is, and I just want to say that it is a good thing that everybody is talking about it. Yes, it might sound really doomer and sad that we're all like this, but at least we're banded together on this. Because remember, first NA got the nerfs for Guardian raids before KR. Then after that, we got the overall raid nerfs. From how things have been, I think the NA feedback has actually been helping, and it actually has been showing with what we say does matter, which goes through AGS and goes through Smilegate. So with the entire community becoming an echo chamber about this, hopefully this actually gets the word through to them and they actually start prioritizing. Of course, it's hopium, copium, whatever you want to call it, but I want to believe that we can make a difference. And though fixing homework wouldn't completely fix Lost Ark, I think it's a step in the right direction. They just need to actually do it. I have a list of a lot of things that I wish that were changed or need to get modified for the sake of the game, but let me know in the comments what you think of the current situation and what kind of changes you would like to see for Lost Ark. May it be a new player, a veteran player, anyone. Actually, we have a little bit of an update here. So this all was recorded the other day, and this is now when I'm editing the video. But they announced a follow-up stream, probably because damage controls. So it already is working. People are already being vocal, and Smilegate is actually listening. Now, hopefully this stream that's coming up tonight is going to address some of the issues that we want, or it could just be another miss. We'll find out. We'll talk about it then.